we talked last week about Jonathan and his armor bearer saying, you know what, our God is so great, he doesn't need a big army in order to conquer our enemies. 2 of us can do it. So they went up and they fought the Philistines and they did win. While they were doing that, Saul put out a call for all of Israel to gather to him so they could go fight the Philistines and get out from under their oppression. They were having to pay high taxes. The Philistines wouldn't let them have any weapons. If they needed to sharpen their farm implements, they had to go pay the Philistines to do it. They were just generally being mistreated by the Philistines at this time. So Saul put out the call for everybody to come. We're going to form an army. We're going to go and we're going to conquer our enemies. Samuel told him, form your army and wait for me. I'll be there and we can do some sacrifices to God and ask for his blessing on our going forth to conquer our enemy. So the army gathered together and they waited for Samuel. And they waited for Samuel. And after they had waited a few days, people started kind of drifting away. And Saul began to think, maybe I'm not going to have an army because I don't know where Samuel is. He hasn't shown up. So Saul said, okay, I'm going to do the sacrifices. Now, at this time, they're still living under the Mosaic Law. And in the Mosaic Law, the priests are supposed to do the sacrificing. But Saul decided, oh, it'd be better for me to do it than to wait any longer. So he did sacrifices, evidently several sacrifices, to try and get God's favor on him while he goes and fights the Philistines. But here's a little key for life. If you want God's favor on what you're going to do, you have to do it God's way. He's not going to give you favor for something if you don't do it his way. God had told him to let the priests, that Samuel, who was a priest, was going to come and do the sacrifices. Saul disobeyed God. Well, as soon as he got the sacrifices going, Samuel showed up. And Samuel said, what did you do, Saul? Before he even got near enough to know what they were doing. But God had told him that Saul had messed up. So Saul told him, I did the sacrifices. I didn't know when you were going to show up, so I went ahead and did the sacrifices. Samuel told Saul, you messed up. You have totally messed up. You've just, your heart is being rebellious, and you are thinking higher of yourself than you should. That is the root behind you being impatient and going ahead with these sacrifices. Because your heart is not in the right place, displayed by this disobedience to what God told you to do, God is going to take your kingdom away from you. And he's going to give it to a neighbor of yours whose heart is aligned with God's will. So, Samuel said, okay, go ahead and pray for me so that we can go ahead and do this. I mean, what can he say at this point? You know, I suppose if he had repented and asked God to forgive him, God would have forgiven him. But he didn't. He just said, okay, let's make a good show of this for the people. And let's go ahead and go fight the Philistines. So they do. They go out and they will fight the Philistines and continue their war. But this is the end of God's favor on Saul. They win some battles. They do reduce the Philistines' hold on them. They don't get rid of it, but they reduce it. But God has now moved his favor. He already knows who the next king will be, and it won't be Jonathan or any of other of Saul's sons. God has other plans because of Saul's disobedience. So let's sing our song. Trying to remember what note it starts on. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.